His coffee hit the floor before he even saw her coming. Marcus had been doing three things at once: holding his phone between his ear and shoulder, reaching for the sugar on the counter, and completely failing to notice the woman who turned the corner of the coffee bar at the exact wrong second. The collision was not graceful. It was not quiet. It was the kind of crash that makes everyone in a 12-foot radius look up from their laptops. Her bag swung. His cup went sideways. A full oat milk latte. The large one. The one he paid an embarrassing amount of money for every Monday because it was the only thing that made Mondays survivable, spilled across the counter, dripped off the edge, and began spreading toward her open laptop, like it had a personal grudge. He grabbed napkins. She grabbed napkins. They both grabbed the same napkins. Her pens rolled off the counter. 3 of them, then 2 more, then one stubborn little red one that rolled in a full circle before deciding to fall. Marcus got down on one knee and picked them up. He counted them out of reflex, the same way he counted tools at the end of a job. 1, 2, 3. He lost count when he looked up and she was already blotting her laptop screen with her sleeve, muttering something under her breath that sounded less like anger and more like a negotiation with fate. 4, 5. He found the red one near the leg of the counter stool. 6. He stood up. She looked at the pens in his hand, then at him, then at the spreading lake of oat milk between them. She laughed. Not the polite kind, not the embarrassed kind. She laughed the way people laugh when something is genuinely, unreasonably funny to them, head tilted, shoulders moving, completely unconcerned about whether the moment called for it. Marcus stood there holding 6 pens like evidence at a crime scene. "I am so sorry," he said. "I wasn't watching where I was going." She waved it off. "Neither was I. And honestly, my laptop has survived worse." She took the pens from his hand. Her fingers were quick and sure, the way people are when they're used to managing chaos without making a production of it. She tucked them back into the side pocket of her bag, snapped it shut, and went back to assessing the damage. Marcus flagged down the barista and asked for a cloth and a replacement latte. For her, not for himself. He did not examine why. He just did it. She looked at him when the barista brought it over. "You didn't have to do that. I knocked it over. We knocked it over. Then I'll buy the next one too." She smiled at that. Something in the smile sat crooked, like she was deciding whether to let it go wider. She didn't quite. She just said, "I'm Diane," and picked up her bag. "Marcus." She nodded once, friendly, uncomplicated, and moved toward the door. He watched her go the way he watched a lot of things. Carefully, without making it obvious, filing it away without deciding what to do with it. He sat back down at his table. His phone was still on the counter. His original coffee was still a disaster on the floor. A barista was mopping it up with the patient expression of someone who had seen this exact thing happen 100 times before. He reached for his phone and found a business card under the edge of his cup. A small card, cream-colored. The name of an elementary school printed across the top, and below it, Diane Calloway, 3rd grade teacher. At the bottom, next to her number, someone had drawn a tiny cartoon pencil in blue ink, hand-drawn, slightly lopsided. He stared at it for longer than he would ever admit to anyone. Then he put it in his jacket pocket and drove to work. The wiring job was on the north side of the city, in a building that smelled like old plaster and fresh ambition. Marcus was good at his work, the kind of good that doesn't need to announce itself. His hands knew what to do. His mind went somewhere else. He thought about the cartoon pencil, about the laugh that didn't ask permission, about 6 pens lined up in his palm. His phone buzzed at noon. A text from his sister Claire. "Don't forget Zoe gets out at 3. He texted back, "I know." She texted, "You always say that and then you panic at 2:45. He put his phone away. He did not panic at 2:45. He was in the pickup line at 2:43, which was practically early by his standards. Zoe came out with her backpack on crooked and a painting in her hand, blue and green swirls that she told him was either a planet or a salad. She hadn't decided yet. "Planet," Marcus said. "Salad," she said. They drove home. He made dinner, pasta, because it was Monday and Mondays were pasta days. That had been the rule for 3 years, and neither of them had thought to change it. Zoe talked about her friend Priya's new shoes and a math worksheet she'd finished in 4 minutes, and Marcus listened and answered and passed the Parmesan. After dinner, he put Zoe to bed. Read half of a chapter about a girl who befriended a dragon, which he privately thought was a very good book, though he would not have said so out loud. He sat on the couch after. The apartment was the particular kind of quiet that only happens when a child is asleep in the next room. Full and specific, like the silence had weight. He'd learned to like that quiet. It had taken him a long time, but he'd learned. He pulled the business card out of his jacket. The cartoon pencil looked even more lopsided under the lamplight. He turned the card over, blank on the back. He set it on the coffee table. He picked it up again. He set it back down. He picked up his phone, typed a message, deleted it, typed a different one, shorter, typed, "This is Marcus from this morning. I still owe you a coffee." He read it twice, decided it was neither too much nor too little, and sent it before he could talk himself out of it. He put the phone face down on the cushion beside him. It buzzed 14 seconds later. Her text said, "I was wondering if you'd actually use the card." He typed back, 6 pens. Seemed like the least I could do. Her reply came quickly. "For the record, there were 7. You miscounted." He looked at that message for a moment. He typed, "When are you free?" It was the most he'd extended himself toward anyone in 3 years. Not a speech, not a grand move. Just 4 words sent into the quiet of an apartment where his daughter was dreaming about salads or planets. He put the phone down. Zoe's painting was propped against the wall by the door, blue and green, still undecided, catching the edge of the lamplight. Marcus sat there in his quiet and thought, not for the first time and not with any particular drama, about all the things a person could lose in a life and all the different ways they learn to keep going anyway. He did not call it anything. He just sat with it. The phone buzzed again. "Diane, Tuesday works. Do you pick the place?" He almost smiled. Didn't quite. Typed, "I know a place," and put the phone down for real this time. He went to bed. He didn't move the cartoon pencil card off the coffee table. He left it there on purpose, though he wouldn't have explained it that way either. He just did. Tuesday came the way Tuesdays do. Ordinary on the surface, slightly different underneath. Marcus finished a job by noon, picked up Zoe from school at 3, made sure Claire was available to sit with her for the evening, and drove across the city to a diner that had been there since before he was born and would probably outlast everyone who had ever eaten in it. Diane was already there. She was in a booth by the window, reading something on her phone, and she looked exactly like she had in the coffee shop, unhurried, contained, like a person who had figured out the right amount of space to take up in a room and was comfortable in it. She looked up when he walked in. 7 pens, she said, before he sat down. "I'm choosing not to believe that," he said, and sat down across from her. The diner was warm and smelled like coffee and griddle grease and something that had been simmering since the morning. The waitress came over with 2 menus and the automatic friendliness of someone who had been doing this job long enough to have their own rhythm. They ordered. They talked. He had expected it to feel difficult. He had expected the specific awkwardness of 2 adults who did not know each other trying to construct something out of nothing, the way you build a conversation from the outside in, asking questions you don't care much about until you find one you do. It didn't feel like that. She told him about her 3rd graders with the patience of someone who genuinely loved her work, not the performed version, the real kind. She told him about a boy in her class named Owen who had started the year refusing to read aloud and last week had read 3 paragraphs without stopping, and the way her face moved when she talked about it said more than the words. Marcus told her about the wiring job, about the building that smelled like old plaster. He did not usually talk about his work in detail, because he'd learned that most people's eyes glazed over at the word circuit, but Diane asked a follow-up question, and then another one, and before long he'd told her more about what he actually did in a day than he'd told most people in months. She stole 2 of his fries without asking. He noticed, said nothing, moved the plate slightly closer to her side of the table. She noticed that too. They stayed long enough that the dinner crowd came in and the diner got loud around them, and neither of them moved to leave. When they finally did, they stood on the sidewalk in the cold for another 20 minutes talking, and Marcus's hands were in his pockets and Diane had her jacket pulled tight around her, and neither of them said anything about the time. He drove home thinking, that's a person. Not that she was wonderful, or that he felt something or any of the things people say, just, that is a real, specific, fully built person, and he hadn't thought that about anyone in long enough that it registered. Zoe was asleep when he got home. Claire was on the couch watching something and looked up when he came in. "How was it?" she said. "Fine," he said. She gave him the look she had been giving him since they were kids, the one that said she knew exactly what he meant, and also exactly what he wasn't saying. He went to check on Zoe. She was out cold, one arm hanging off the bed, her dragon book face down on the nightstand. He straightened the blanket, stood there for a moment. He went back to the living room and sat in the chair by the window and looked at his phone and thought about Tuesday. He texted Diane at 10:47. "I had a good time." She texted back at 10:49, "So did I." That was all. It was enough. They met the following Thursday, then a Sunday afternoon, then the Thursday after that. Each time felt like continuing something that had already started, which was unusual, because Marcus had stopped trusting that feeling. He had learned, at some cost, that the feeling of continuity could be an illusion, something that looked like momentum from the inside and looked like nothing at all from the outside. But Diane always texted when she said she would. She always showed up where she said she'd be. She didn't perform interest. She either asked or she didn't, and when she asked, she listened to the actual answer. He noticed these things the way he noticed wiring, not romantically, but structurally, whether the current was real, whether the connections held. He hadn't told Zoe anything, not because he was hiding it, because there was nothing to hide yet, or at least that was what he told himself. Zoe was 9. Zoe had watched her mother pack a bag on a Tuesday morning and not come back, which was a thing Marcus had spent 3 years finding the right ways and wrong ways to explain. And the truth was, there were no right ways, only less wrong ones. Zoe didn't ask questions she didn't already sense the answer to. That was the part that kept Marcus careful. He moved the cartoon pencil card from the coffee table to the kitchen counter, then to the cup holder of his truck, where it sat under a gas station receipt and 2 pennies. He didn't look at it. He knew it was there. 3 weeks into Thursday dinners and Sunday afternoons, he left his jacket on Diane's passenger seat after she drove him to a hardware store when his truck wouldn't start. She texted him a photo of it hanging on her coat hook. He texted back, "Keep it." She texted back, "It's very large." He didn't ask for it back. On a Sunday in late October, Zoe found the card. He was in the kitchen. She was supposedly doing homework at the kitchen table but had wandered to the truck. For a pencil, she said, which was improbable given that there were 4 pencils on the table, and came back in holding the card between 2 fingers, the way she held things she wasn't sure about. She looked at it. She looked at him. "She has nice handwriting," Zoe said. Then she set the card on the table, picked up her pencil, and went back to her worksheet. Marcus stood at the counter for a moment. Then he reorganized the entire kitchen, every cabinet, every drawer. Spices alphabetical, which he had never done in his life. Zoe came into the kitchen at some point for a glass of water, looked at him pulling everything out of the cabinet under the stove, and went back to her homework without comment. She had his way of not asking things out loud. He worked until 11. He did not examine why,